Gambling. Porn. Frogs. Adam Sandler. Oil. Scientology. Thomas Pynchon. Fashion. And underage relationships. What all these things have in common is they're all a subject of a film in Paul Thomas Anderson's filmography. So glad to be here on the Wednesday Night Podcast.
No. This is my show. I'm introducing you. This is not fair. This isn't. I was gonna let the bit run, and I was cool with all that. But this is my show. Okay.
Whenever you record it.
Can you just look at me right now?
Yeah.
This is my show. But thank you for that, Peter. Thank you for coming today. Welcome to the WESDAY Night Podcast.
I didn't mean to hijack the show. I just didn't know where to stop. It's my podcast debut.
Yeah, no, I'm
my
just,
heartache.
No, this is
My Sydney.
This is first nerves, shaking off first nerves, because I don't have a plan on introducing you. But this is my roommate, my good friend and collaborator, just a really, really cool guy I know, Peter Vasquez.
Yeah.
From Nutley.
From Nutley, New
He is Nutley.
I'm a Nutley guy. I am Nutley.
He is Nutley, New Jersey.
I am Nutley.
All right, so today we're here to talk about pizza. Well, first of all, I wanted to say though, like, how was your day?
Pretty good.
Into the mic, please.
Into the mic, please. You guys will get it soon. My day's been pretty good so far. I woke up later than I usually. Well, later than I was supposed to because I had pages to write, but I got 6.5 pages of this television pilot I'm writing done. I needed the pages done because I'm working with the teacher on developing the script, and pages are due every
Okay,
week.
film major.
Yeah.
That's good. Anything else besides work? I'm not here to talk about work right now.
Okay. Besides work, I got dinner with my parents and my beautiful girlfriend, and it was wonderful.
That's not a good. I feel pretty good. I just ate too, so. But yeah, no, wait, yeah, no. My day was all right. I need to chill out today, you know. So I realized that I need to chill out, just so, you know, trying to fit too much in a single day. But I feel good. I'm glad to be recording right now, and just like. I'm really trying to chill out. I am really excited to talk about these Paul Thomas Anderson films. I was in and out of The Master just now, but we were just rewatching that. What do you want to say? What do you want to say about Paul Thomas Anderson as like the person? You know.
I'll introduce him. So
yeah, what do you know about him?
Paul Thomas Anderson is a writer-director of feature-length films. His father worked, I believe, at NBC as a voice. He used to voice commercials and stuff like that. He was born in the San Fernando Valley, which is
his dad was a voice actor. I didn't know.
I think so, yeah. He grew up in the San Fernando Valley, which is where a lot of his films are set. It was very much a I don't know. I want to say he's rags to riches. 'Cause he's probably doing well, but. He wasn't really a Nepo baby. His father didn't have that much clout as far as I know. And he came up during 90s independent cinema. His first film was called The Dirk Diggler Story. He was 17 years old. He made a bunch of movies with his friends when he was growing up. One of them was called The Dirk Diggler Story. It was this mockumentary in the style of Spinal Tap. It was about this porn star based on the life of John Holmes, who was a famous porn star. And it was just kind of a funny thing that he did with his friends. It wasn't a big deal. I think he probably screened it here and there, but it wasn't like some festival darling or whatever. Anyways, he obviously had a huge interest in cinema throughout his entire life. He went to college, forget in which order, but he went to New York University, NYU, and Emerson College. He walked into a film class at NYU sat down. It was a screenwriting class, and the professor said, "If you were here to write the next Terminator 2, get out of my class because, I'm not sure why the professor said this, but PTA heard this and said to himself, what's wrong with wanting to do the next Terminator 2?" So he left the class. He left film school and felt it was a really unfulfilling thing for him. He didn't think he could learn.
Yeah.
He thought that it was weird that they would screen films from like the birth of cinema before they would do. He felt it was better to approach it like start with Taxi Driver and move backwards. It'd be more inviting if you kind of understood modern cinema and worked your way backwards to kind of get to its origins. He also went to Emerson College, where I believe he was a creative writing major or some sort of English major. He took a class by David Foster Wallace, funny enough. Yeah, so he was a extremely famous author who wrote the book Infinite Jest, which is apparently like the most densely written book of all time or something like that. And
I'm not gonna act like I know, but yeah,
yeah,
that's cool.
yeah. And so he was in and out of school, and in and out of the entertainment industry, taking jobs as a PA, all these other kind of things. He met Philip Baker Hall on the set of a PBS story of some sort, and it was on that set that he approached Phil Baker Hall with a short script, for a film titled Cigarettes and Coffee, a short film. He was able to use the money that his father had saved for him to go to college and use this money to make a short film called Cigarettes and Coffee. You can find it on YouTube. It's in very low quality. I've seen it a couple times. I'm not extremely familiar with it. I couldn't really speak to it much right now, but he just bundled all of his resources at a time, made a little short film with Philip Baker Hall in it and Miguel Ferrer, who is Albert on Twin Peaks.
Oh.
The two of them were in it. It followed this $1 bill that was exchanged between people amongst a diner. So he made the short film. He submitted it to the Sundance Film Festival. It was accepted. I believe he had a residency there, and he began to develop a script for a little film called Sydney, based on the story of his script for Cigarettes and Coffee.
That's a good transition because that's the first movie of his career. It's titled Sydney, but like unofficially, but it's Hard Eight.
He directed this film. A lot of independent films were getting made during this period due to the success of Pulp Fiction. Studios were eager to find the next Quentin Tarantino. He made this film. The studio hated it, so they decided to cut up their own version of the film. Paul hated this version of the film. He was locked out of the editing room. He insisted on his cut of the film being the one which was produced and sent. And in order to gain some sort of power, I guess, he sent that version of his film, his version, to, I believe it was the Cannes Film Festival? I could be wrong. But anyways, the final cut of the film you see, if you were to stream it, is his cut of the film. But the studio insisted that if they were going to allow him to edit his own film, that they would have to change the title to make it more marketable. So I went from Sydney, who's the name of Phil Baker Hall's character in the film, to Hard Eight. He hates the title and refers to it as Sydney, but if you look PTA up on Letterboxd or whatnot, you will find the name Hard Eight. So.
It's about gambling, and it's about Sydney, I guess, like finding a loophole in in like the casino system and just rigging it to make like all this illegal money, and then somehow John C. Reilly's like tied into it.
Yeah. Are we doing spoilers on the show?
That's an interesting. I didn't even make that decision. Yes.
It's been out for a while. Yeah.
Yes. No, we're talking about a person's career.
Sure.
There will be spoilers.
Yes.
That shouldn't be.
If you want to see Boogie Nights and There Will Be Blood, those are the big ones. Go watch them and come back to this because we're gonna spoil those as well. Essentially, so John C. Reilly's in the film. He's a frequent collaborator of Paul Thomas Anderson. He was in his most recent film, Licorice Pizza, a short cameo. John C. Reilly's character is the son of a man who Philip Baker Hall's character had killed, and that's the big twist of the movie. Mm-hmm. Samuel Jackson's also in the film. Gwyneth Paltrow's in the film. Samuel Jackson has this aura of danger in the film. I'm pretty sure he's like he works security for the place that they all work out of, and then Gwyneth Paltrow's character is playing. She's a hostess or a waitress, I believe, who is making money on the side by being a prostitute. And yeah, I think that film for me it's really interesting because like it's shot very well, like the music, but it's not necessarily as I don't want to say deep, but it's just not as like doesn't ask as many psychological questions as most Paul Thomas Anderson films do. I love that film though for what it is, and it's inspiring to see that can get made. Just based on the work of a short film as a filmmaker myself. And my favorite scene in that film is Philip Seymour Hoffman's bit. He's in one scene, and he
Right.
plays this erratic frat persona, essentially, this
Yeah.
bully kind of thing. Uh, Paul Thomas Anderson, loved Philip Seymour Hoffman. They were very close collaborators and friends. And they met on the set of this film, and I believe at that time, Philip Seymour Hoffman was known for being a bully in a lot of films. Kind of he played the character he played in Sydney in a lot of other films. And Paul Thomas Anderson said he usually likes writing roles for actors, that they usually wouldn't get, or roles that they weren't, you know, write roles, and he wanted to write roles for them in which they would be able to showcase their talents, in addition to what they've already done. But he said for that character, he wanted to write the best version of what Philip Seymour Hoffman had been doing. So I really like that film. It was romantic energy. I really like that scene. It's romantic energy to his character. He's very antagonistic to Phil Baker Hall's character, which is very very fun. Um, I don't know. We watched this film maybe a year ago or so.
Yeah, no, it was definitely like within the last year. It's, I mean, that movie just seems very introductory to like his voice and his style, like, and like who he is,
Cools.
Yeah,
Nicky Flake.
a little bit of an ensemble piece. Like it's starring Sydney or Phil Beaker Hall, but I mean Gwyneth Paltrow is a big part in it, and then her thing going on with John C. Riley. It was like that felt like just as important, and like it felt like a whole movie because of that. Like not really like two short films or anything like that. So it was cool. It was like I said, like a good introduction to sort of like how he tells a story, how like what he's interested in, like showing people about his characters and all, like the things that like he finds relevant to film. Um, Other than that, though, it's definitely like, I mean, we're gonna get into like rankings later, but I mean, it's on the lower end, but for like very explainable reasons. It's just his first movie, man. Like he gets way better after this, and I mean, talk about way better with the second movie the year after.
Boogie Nights.
Yeah, Boogie
Boogie
Nights.
Nights. So, as I mentioned,
You go
before,
ahead with Boogie Nights, bro. I'm not even gonna.
Yeah, I have a poster in my room. I love Boogie Nights so much. Probably my second favorite film of all time. The first being a different Paul Thomas Anderson film. Boogie Nights is the story of the porn industry and the transition from the 70s to the 80s, from shooting on film to shooting on videotape. It's a restructuring or a reimagining of the Dirk Diggler story, which is the short film I mentioned earlier. After Paul Thomas Anderson's experience on the set of Part 8, where he almost lost the cut of the film and he wasn't able to title it, he got very paranoid and very power hungry. Well, not power hungry, but just like he insists on having control of this film. So he wrote this script. It is undeniable. It's bulletproof, the script. And he had a bunch of actors interested. He was able to cast Mark Wahlberg, Burt Reynolds, Julianne Moore, Philip Seymour Hoffman, John C. Reilly, Phil Baker Hall again, Laura Walters, Don Cheadle, Robert Downey Sr., funny enough. The movie, Hard 8, the title was changed. To get over this and to make sure that this wouldn't happen for Boogie Nights, the opening shot of Boogie Nights is a title card for Boogie Nights. It's part of the opening shot. It was a mid-budget film, probably made for a couple tens of millions, something like that. And it's just this expansive story. It's 2.5 hours. It's influenced by Goodfellas. It's influenced by the works of Robert Altman, who I wish I was more familiar with. And it's almost like it was his introduction to the world. It put him on the map as a filmmaker. It's just so vibrant, and it's so dark, but it's so funny. It's almost anything. It's almost everything you'd want in a movie. There's action in there. There's violence, drugs, sex. Maybe that's just my interests. But
Yeah, all family friendly.
Family friendly.
Yeah, it's like you could just watch this with your mom, or anyone else in your family. No, this movie. Well, the movie, I guess Goodfellas is a very interesting. It is. It has a lot of influences, but it's a very original story. I think. I really like the idea of like going through that full arc of a young sort of performer in that industry, especially during that time with the drugs or like the freedom with drugs and this exploratory like sort of phase in the culture. It's a magnum opus. I mean, for me, it's up there with like one of the best movies of anybody's that a lot of directors have ever made. Like I said, it's a full arc. You get all sides of the story. Like there's is there an argument for the glorification of it? Yes, but then you watch the second half and like sort of what Mark Wahlberg's character Mark Wahlberg, it's crazy to say, right? What his character goes through, and it's not so much of like a glorification, and then people like every character like has to pay for like their sort of their actions in a lot of sense. I think that's cool. Like I think it's cool that you get like it's multifaceted. Like no, but truly, like
Inherently
it's
multifaceted.
Inherently multifaceted, like all things. No, but seriously, it
Inherent vice.
you do wow, you just foreshadow, I guess. You do get sort of at like at every perspective, I guess, and like not like the full life, right? Like it goes through a whole decade, pretty much of time, like time wise, but it's like a whole career. It's like whole phases in like these characters' lives.
Boogie Nights is also the film where a Freudian analysis of Paul Thomas Anderson's work can begin. Well,
Okay.
one tidbit that kind of unlocks the inspirations of the movie, or at least I like really like enjoy getting into the writers' heads when I as a writer myself. Like, where did this story come from and things like that. Apparently, the woman who plays Dirk Diggler's mother, Mark Wahlberg's character, his mother, saw when she met Paul Thomas Anderson, she read the part of the character, and the character of Dirk Diggler's mother is a rather nasty woman. I mean, she's very, very rude to her son, hateful even. But she said to Paul, if your mother is anything like this, you don't ever need to apologize. Or she, like, it was something where, like, f her, if that's how she treated you. And apparently Paul Thomas Anderson cried. I think a lot of these tidbits I'm getting from the Ringer podcast's oral histories, which I really enjoy. So to me, I think it's not a huge leap to say that I think Dirk Diggler's relationship with his mother is maybe influenced by Paul Thomas Anderson's own relationship with his mother. And then you think about other characters in the film, like Julianne Moore's character, Amber Waves, who is described as a mother to all those who need love or saving, something of that sort. And they have sex. I mean, they have sex on film, and she's always talking about like, you're my boy, Dirk, and it's like, it's just very interesting that he finds more solace in this sexual relationship with a mother-like figure than he does his own relationship with his mother. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Makes you kind of question. I mean, ultimately not judge, but just question where that comes from, or sort of what the life experiences that are drawn like are being put into that.
Yeah.
It's a bad way to put it, but you get what I mean. Yeah, no, that's that movie.
Yeah.
We'll talk about more about that later, because it's definitely on, like I said, on the higher end of just what he's made. Period. Like it's his life does change after that movie. Like there is a pre Boogie Nights, Paul Thomas Anderson, and then the post.
And meets Fiona Apple during this period.
Yeah, like it was probably. I mean, I can't speak for the guy, but like, it seems like a life changing like not only movie just to have in your like catalog, but also just like experience to make and like have to go through. That's it's pretty trippy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say that Paul Thomas Anderson, he loves cocaine. He loves filming.
I mean, I guess it's an undeniable fact. Like of this time in his life.
It is undeniable.
Hopefully not anymore. I hope he's doing. Hope he's doing.
What's interesting is that Like,
What do you know? Okay.
well, I don't know anything.
Okay.
I don't know Paul Thomas Anderson. I wish
You don't. Yeah,
I
you
would
don't.
love to meet him.
You know,
but,
we don't. We're just two guys talking about a really famous guy right now.
Yeah. There's a certain manic energy to his early filmography. He takes a 5-year break between Punch Drunk Love and There'll Be Blood. We'll talk about those later, but and he completely, his demeanor in all his interviews completely changes. He's like very like kind of twitchy, and I don't want to say erratic, but just like very much like he's very physical. He's like just kind of almost acting on impulse. It seems in a lot of his early interviews and stuff like that, especially around the time of Boogie Nights. I was my original thing was that he was talking about Boogie Nights. He was talking about the scene with Julianne Moore's character and Heather Graham's character, Roller Girl. They do a lot of cocaine together and they just keep talking. And he said, like in an interview, like I've done a lot of cocaine and I know what those conversations are like. I hope he's doing okay. But what I was gonna say is that I think like my 2 cents on the issue is that between Punch Drunk Love and W Blood, something deeply changed for him. I think he may have, I don't know, maybe he got sober, but I don't know what happened. But his work completely changes, his demeanor completely changes, and I think it's very interesting to see, you know, how his drug addiction during like probably his most like noteworthy part of his life. I mean, he's always made films that have been seen by people, but he didn't do something about that first entrance, which is kind of like the entrance into the person that's like maybe like not the most interesting, but just kind of the most like most eyes are on you during that period of time. Or at least you'd feel that way, especially with the new attention getting to you. You know, after a couple of years, you might get used to it. Yeah, I mean, he was addicted to cocaine apparently, and having the time of his life making these phenomenal films with Fiona Apple, who is this extremely popular singer-songwriter, and they were a very noteworthy couple.
Being host here, but yeah,
Sure.
but okay, yeah. Good transition to the next movie 2 years after that, with Magnolia.
Magnolia. I'm more curious.
We just recently watched this movie, so I'll introduce it just because I do remember this. Okay, so like it starts with like three like okay, I guess it's starting with okay. this I have an explainable reason for why this movie is confusing, but it starts with 3 deaths of people that just happen purely from coincidence because they're just so odd and like the timing of them is just too good, which is it's commenting on the reason why like it's in a movie in the first place. Anyways, because it's like I was watching that and it's like oh like those things that happen by coincidence like in real life it just feels like you're in a movie, and it's funny that this is in a movie right now talking about that. I mean, talk about cocaine, right? So after that introduction, you get this parallel like multi storyline thing with Tom Cruise like being this guru for lonely men trying
Andrew
to bag.
Tate figure.
Yeah, Andrew Tate figure. I guess it's annoying to cite him right now, but this is, yeah.
For people who don't.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of who he is, and then. John C. Reilly again, but this time he's a cop who like falls in love with. Okay, here we go. Who falls in love with the daughter of this game show host guy who has a kid.
Yeah, describe
Well, okay, well, she's like has her own drug issues, abuse issues, and then she gets like through her disturbances, she gets to meet the cop, and then the game show host guy is just a mess and like dying and has cancer, and then the game show has they host these kids who are winning, and then one of the kids like pees his pants in the middle of the show. It's just this story that just like things just are just happening consecutively like all at once. It's a big movie. It's an epic.
It's the greatest movie about the San Fernando Valley, which is where he's from. Or maybe you didn't say that, but you wanted to tell like the story of the San Fernando Valley. You know,
it's a lot. It's a lot going on in it, and then it just rains frogs, and then everything's solved.
You can see Laura Walter's character smile.
Like no, there's no like punchline to that or anything. Like that's really what just happens in the movie. And I really loved it. That's the cool part is that I really enjoyed that part of the movie when it started raining frogs.
Julianne Moore gives a great performance. She has some some lines that I really like. It's I forgot to do some. I gotta do my impressions. I skipped an impression. I'm gonna do my Dirk Diggler impression, okay?
No.
It's my big and I wanna everybody get ready now! That's Mark Wahlberg's character in Boogie Nights. But no, I was gonna do Julianne Moore impression where she's like she's like in his medical office, she's trying to get her pills, Prozac.
And then I'll be the guy. I'll be
the
guy. And it's like,
I'm just like, imagine I'm just like, like I'm just like really upset and just like frustrated. And
I'll be like, lady, relax, like just lady.
Don't you call me lady!
You try to make it not as loud.
Don't you call me lady!
Thank you. Thank you for not going all the way like usual.
I suck so many cocks.
No, it wasn't.
That's her line in the film.
Okay, yeah, no, that was. Thank you for that. That movie, yeah,
really mad
that movie.
That
movie is very interesting because it has moments like that where I'm like, why, like, what is going on? Like, why is it a big deal that the kid pees his pants, and all this and all the other things going on in the movie? But then it like rains frogs, and then John C. Reilly's being awkward as a cop, and like there's stuff about it that I just really like too. So. I can't take away from the movie. It's a great movie.
It's not as focused as Boogie Nights.
I enjoyed the movie.
It's long as hell, but it's a good movie nonetheless. I think it's Tom Cruise's best character work. I don't know. I don't have my Magnolia take. I don't have a take on that movie, but I appreciate it.
Okay.
I like the camera movements in it quite a bit.
All right, we'll address some of the movies that you also mentioned earlier. Just get them out. You mentioned in between Punch Drunk Love and There Will Be Blood, there was a big shift. Punch Drunk Love is a very interesting movie starring Adam Sandler, who gets mixed up with like, it's not even the mob. It's just like these guys that are like scamming.
Phone sex company.
Phone sex company scammer guys. And and Adam Sandler just gets tied up in that, so then he has to like go to like Utah or something. Which I actually really enjoyed that movie.
I really enjoy that movie too. I think it's really good. It's kind of like, I don't want to say it's the forgotten gem of his filmography.
I don't know, maybe we're going to get crapped on for that opinion because, it's probably not as good of a movie to other people.
Yeah, I think most people really enjoy. I mean, I think it's got a pretty good track record. Like, when Francis Ford Coppola talks about Thomas Anderson, the movie he talks about for whatever reason was Punch Drunk Love. These Boogie Nights, Magnolia, these expansive, deep and dark, pieces, and then Punch Drunk Love is kind of this fun little movie about this man who's just has anger issues.
I love the start of it. Yeah.
Yeah, he wants. There's just this. Yeah, it just starts. It just starts with like no credits, no anything. It's just Adam Sandler's in a room. He's wearing this blue vest or blue jacket. And he's wearing it everywhere he fucking goes. And it was really interesting because at that time, Adam Sandler was definitely regarded as just not a good actor. I mean, this was before the Uncut Gems and the film he did with Noah Baumbach and whatnot, And even after, I mean, it's kind of like there's like before and after, at least in terms of film criticism, before and after Punch Drunk Love when it comes to like the evaluation of Adam Sandler's filmography. Yeah, I don't want to say it was a reclaiming moment because Adam Sandler was very popular at the time, very much a working actor, but he hadn't done any serious work. And funny enough, Adam Sandler went to go see Magnolia because Paul Thomas Anderson told him, I'm going to write a script for you. And Adam Sandler called PTA and was like, dude, I cannot do what you did in that movie. Like, I'm not capable of, Tom Cruise crying for, just this long monologue about his father dying. Like, that was never what PTA wanted from him in the first place. He just did an Adam Sandler movie and he did it his way. It's kind of this small art house film. I think he won Best Director at the Cannes Film Festival. And it's kind of this nice film. Philip Seymour Hoffman plays the heavy, the antagonist. He has that one line where he's like, shut.
Yo, you got me with that one.
Shut up. Shut the f*** up.
You got me.
There's a line in that movie I really like.
Yo, you really startled me right there. Okay.
I like Sandler's line where he's like, I have a love in my life. And it makes me stronger than you can ever imagine. I think I've tweeted that a lot. You know,
You're citing your Twitter. We're gonna get back to this because we're gonna rank these.
Yeah, true.
We gotta pace it. We gotta pace it.
Yeah, so There Will Be Blood is what many people consider, not the men on this podcast, but many people consider to be Paul Thomas Anderson's magnum opus. Some people call it the greatest film of the 21st century, best film of the 2000s. It's a great film about an oil miner or an oil tycoon called.
I'm sorry. That's see. Here's the thing. Like, I'm gonna interrupt you already. Like, that sentence doesn't match in my head. It's a great movie, but how great can it be if it's about just what Daniel Day-Lewis running around screaming at his son and like running an oil company?
Can I play devil's advocate? I think it's an amazing film. I truly.
Okay.
I just don't think it's. I don't think it's top two. You know. No, it's people call it this amazing metaphor for capitalism. Kind of details the history of California. There's really deep themes of church and state, greed. Daniel Day-Lewis gives maybe the greatest acting performance of all time, because it's a leading role, but it's such great character work, and the voice is so strong. He talks like this. He doesn't talk like that. He talks like, "Do you understand, Eli? Do you understand? That's more to the point. I abandoned my child!" He's just giving this really, like...
Right.
You know, it's a flex. It's a real flex. He's flexing his acting chops. Daniel Day-Lewis took the role because he loved Punch Drunk Love. And it's based on this book called Oil. He adapted the book for his film. Definitely takes it into a different direction. And, yeah, it's pretty amazing. Paul Dano's in it. And it's an epic. It's another epic, but very different this time. It kind of focuses on a few characters, and what's epic about it is kind of the visual landscape, the shots of the mountains. The first time he works with John Greenwood on that score. It's a great film. Wes does not appreciate it.
I'm not. Wow.
As much, I didn't finish that. Wes does not appreciate it as I think a lot of other people do. Maybe I don't either, because I think Boogie Nights and The Master are better. But
I think it's really distracting that it's really billed within the same year. It's going to be remembered in history along with No Country, and No Country is just so much better.
Yeah, so...
Like, it's not even close.
I agree that No Country for Old Men, Coen Brothers film, based on...
Just totally not relevant to what we're doing right now, but
album.
this is... I'm sorry.
I think it's a better film.
Almost takes away from the experience. As, I don't know, maybe as someone who just is just college kid right now, don't really speak to... Like, I wasn't there type stuff, but, like, I just don't think it's as good. I don't think it's close. I don't think it's as good as Boogie Nights, but that's later. That's later.
Yeah.
We got okay.
Yeah, I did the big one.
The Master.
The big one.
The Master. The Master.
Master is when Paul Thomas Anderson decided to just tell everyone who he is. He's the master. He's the master of the cinematic. It's the master of the cinematic art form. Truly.
Wow.
Greatest working filmmaker right now. That's for sure.
Wow.
In my opinion.
Just writing.
Yeah. It's good. The Master is a film that many people overlook because they immediately just think, oh, it's Paul Thomas Anderson just doing like a not half-assed, but just like a semi-biography. Semi-biography of L. Ron Tillard. Is that his name?
Hubbard.
Herbert Tillard?
L. Ron Hubbard.
L. Ron Hubbard. I don't know where that
came from. Okay, the reason why I know this is because apparently in the town that I used to live at, and shout out to Pasadena, shout out to La Cañada. Even though, no shout out to La Cañada. I take that back. But in La Cañada, there is a tunnel where supposedly L. Ron Hubbard sent people to like kill babies or something. But yeah, he's the guy who did Scientology or whatever.
Yes, so that's what I was getting to. That the film is based on a Scientology-like religion, cult, whatever you would like to call it,
right.
Called The Cause. The cult is led by Philip Seymour Hoffman, who is just a phenomenal actor and continued to work with PTA throughout his life, and it's this extremely charismatic performance where literally the weight of the world is on his shoulders. He runs this cult. We're introduced to the cult through the character that Joaquin Phoenix plays, Freddie Quell, who's a World War II veteran with PTSD who suffers from alcoholism. He creates alcohol. He creates drinks out of paint thinner and things that have very very strong alcohol content to just get his fix. And Amy Adams is in the film. She plays Philip Seymour Hoffman's wife. Uh, and it's I find the film to be it's my favorite film of all time. I relate to it on many different levels. I understand like feelings of isolation, loss, searching for meaning. They just speak to me an incredible level, and it's very dreamlike, ethereal. It's got a phenomenal score. Paul Thomas Anderson doesn't do as much with the camera in this movie as he did in Boogie Nights, with these wide push-ins and all these things. I don't know. It's like he's great. It's his great American novel. He didn't adapt this story. This is fully from him. It's inspired by these documentary films of soldiers after they leave the war. I'll let Wes speak in a second, but I think the film is about, love and what we look for in love, and I think the conclusion after the film, I think Paul Thomas Anderson's argument is that people just want to be understood. They truly, more than anything, want to feel heard and understood. And there's so much homoerotic tension between Philip Seymour Hoffman's character and Joaquin Phoenix's character. Philip Seymour Hoffman is all about control. His character has to be very much be in control of every room and always be the most important figure for everybody there. And Joaquin Phoenix is essentially playing just this animalistic guy who doesn't care about all that, and he's like a dog that just won't sit. And Philip Seymour Hoffman's character is insisting he wants him to sit. He tells him to sit, and Joaquin Phoenix says no, he does not. He just is always rebelling. But ultimately, the cause changes Freddie Quell's life, and he becomes much more articulate and in control of his urges. And I think Philip Seymour Hoffman's character almost resents him for this, because I think the cause can't work as a long-term movement, because if you actually solve these everlasting, constant moral suffrages, no, not suffrage, just these pains.
Suffrage.
No.
The right to vote. I know what you mean.
It's just that, like, the goal, I think Philip Seymour Hoffman wants, to always have to be able to always be in control and always be greater than and always be helping people. But if he truly wanted to help people, he would let them go. And he doesn't let Joaquin Phoenix's character go. He calls him and asks him to come back, And Joaquin Phoenix is almost a walking contradiction with the cause in many ways. I'm not sure exactly what I mean by that, but I think it sounds good. And I think it also is true. I don't know how to elaborate, but that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, I think The Master is about a lot of things. Of course, you could take it like as, this like study on, or like this depiction of Scientology and cults. But I feel like it's also just about those things, like what you sort of said about trying to feel seen and, searching for meaning. And, people just have their own very unique ways of doing that and trying to get there. And that's why I think the movie also just works beyond just like Joaquin Phoenix's character. I mean, like people like the actors like Amy Adams and Rami Malek, like
Clemens.
Jesse Plemons, yeah. They it all feels real, that they like are just as invested, if not more invested in this than Joaquin's character. I think that it just says a lot. I think it doesn't.
So much.
It says more than sort of what's even seen. Like the first few shots is just like this very perverted guy who's a drunk and just a mess. But then by the end, we just sort of see a person who is looking for freedom and like real love. Sort of flips your perception about people in general, and sort of like the things that we see versus what we don't know. Like the things that we don't know they go through.
You asking me?
No, I mean, does that...
If you know the answers to your questions, do I ask? Pig.
Speaking of Joaquin Phoenix.
We can't do the film justice. It's too good. You just gotta watch it.
Yeah.
It's talking about it is reducing.
He does really great. PTA does really great work with Joaquin Phoenix, and especially this next film, Inherent Vice, 2014. I think that one's a great movie too. It's sort of like that movie is just a haze, and I remember like how it made me feel, and I can like point out like you. Of course, you probably remember more of the plot than I do, honestly, because I just remember how like groovy that movie was, and just I mean you see Doc, I mean Joaquin's character get like beat up and just totally screwed out of a relation, like this relationship, and he's being a detective and being inquisitive and looking for clues, and then he's like walking upon death and just rudeness along the way. It's a great movie.
It's a great movie. It's based on a book by Thomas Pynchon, who is a recluse, but also known as one of the greatest novelists of the 20th century. And I don't know. I also talking. You can't spoil the film because it's just it ebbs and flows so much, and it's very much a vibe more than it is. It's a mood, more than it is a plot or anything like that. Inherently, there's vices in the film.
Wow.
No, it's intentionally is confusing, and I think it's
that is
really
true.
Good
That's
job.
true. That is true. It is kind of confusing, but you know what generally happens. It's not like
it's not indecipherable.
Yeah. It's not indecipherable, and like this thing that like it's not totally art house. Something happens in the movie.
Yeah.
Like he is going after like kind of a big situation, like hotshot real estate guy.
I think it's about the feeling of being out of the loop, or FOMO, kind of. I think it's kind of like that feeling of so many things are going on right now that you were unaware of, and you maybe have an idea or a clue, and you're just about to grasp what maybe is going on around you, but things completely change, and that's what happens in the film, and you don't ever really get a grasp on it. And it's kind of this intangible thing, this fleeting feeling, and it's kind of like, everything's going on around Doc. Almost all this like action that we talk like this convoluted plot entails, like 90% of it happens off screen. It's like a lot of talking, and it's always about like this happened, so this must have happened, and this could have happened, and it's kind of like, I don't know why. Maybe this is where I was in my life at the time I watched the film. But I kind of remember it as something almost. It's not about this. It's not about this. But like somehow the one thing I got from it was like, man, that's the feeling of like when all your friends are hanging out and they didn't invite you.
Out of the loop. That is a good way to put it. You as the audience, you're a little out of the loop with sort of prior history between a lot of characters. We'll address it later in the rankings. A movie that you maybe don't. I don't know. I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna say you don't appreciate this one too.
Yeah.
But I will say that this movie's probably like not as remembered as much. This next one.
It's a hot take, apparently. Apparently, a lot of people feel Phantom Thread is the film we're about to talk about. A lot of people apparently feel Phantom Thread is one of his stronger works, and it probably is. I mean, it's a really nice chamber piece about. I forget if the characters get married, but really about like having a partner and what that's like. It's a small film. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis gives his final performance. He retires after he does this film. He was nominated for it. He's wonderful in the film. But what I remember most about the film is how great.
That is so crazy. He retired. Yeah.
He knew going into the movie it would be his final film.
Interesting.
But what I really remember about the film is Vicky Krieps, who plays Daniel Day-Lewis's wife in the movie. She gives a phenomenal performance. I don't know how she wasn't nominated. And apparently the basis of the film was Paul Thomas Anderson was deeply sick at home in bed, and his wife, Maya Rudolph, from SNL, was, taking care of him. maybe I'm getting this wrong, but I feel like he might have said that like they had just had an argument of some sort. Anyways, he's in bed and he's sick, and his wife is feeding him, and he kind of wondered if. And I want to get into this about the master. I think, like, basically the idea is that wouldn't it be advantageous for your wife to kind of keep you in a very vulnerable position, you know? And Paul Thomas Anderson's movies are very much about men and power and control. And I think what's so fascinating, psychologists will say that like when you're talking about not about like sexual preference, but like the act of sex, dominance or not having dominance. Somebody who can be very much about control in their career and their personal life may want to be submissive in their sexual life to kind of relieve that tension, and somehow that becomes more appealing. And I think that relates to the Master as much as it relates to Phantom Thread. I think there's something about Joaquin Phoenix's character and Philip Seymour Hoffman's characters both being extremely intense and passionate, and they don't ever want to let up, but they just kind of submit to one another every once in a while. And I think like Daniel Day-Lewis's character, Phantom Thread, is just extremely like he never loves his wife more than when he's in bed and vulnerable, and he's kind of being very submissive, and he's just kind of letting go of control and providing it to the woman in his life who he loves, which I think it's beautiful and it's honest, and I need to revisit the film. Last time I watched the film, I was inebriated, so I need a better take on it. But I do really like the film. I don't dislike the film.
It is sweet. It is beautiful. And it is the more you think about it being Daniel Day-Lewis's last film, makes it like more fun too, because I'm sure like on some level he feels that way about just movies in general, just sort of letting like the art or whatever he's trying to achieve like take him away, and submitting to like on some level like that motion of retirement is like submitting to the body of work he's made thus far, and like sort of how he's felt about his contribution to cinema.
Yeah. No, I mean that's very very true. It's I'm really glad you said that, because I think like Daniel Day-Lewis, if there were any actor who was more about control, it's probably Daniel Day-Lewis. I mean, he's from the OG method actor. Not really Robert De Niro, but very much maybe the most famous method actor, maybe the most famous method actor in the least problematic way. He only referred to Mr. President on the set of Lincoln. He was so obsessed with his characters that he would go home as them. I think in his Oscar acceptance speech, and maybe also when talking about Phantom Thread, he thanked his wife and thanked her for living with all the different men that he was in his life, because he would always was so about being the character. He would speak in their voices, act as they do, and so there is something exactly what you're saying is so true, that like retirement is like the ultimate letting go if you're that focused and concerned about power and control in your career. So really mature decision for Daniel Day-Lewis. I'm sure he's living a wonderful life wherever the hell he is. God bless the boy.
Right.
And yeah.
We're down to Licorice Pizza.
Yep.
His latest movie.
Yep.
You really like this movie.
I really like this movie. I really liked Licorice Pizza. I saw it for the first time the very first Friday that it was in select theaters. I saw it at AMC Lincoln Square on 70mm film with a bunch of other Letterboxd users and my dad. I watched it just with my dad, but everybody around me was talking about Letterboxd. It was kind of funny. It holds a special place in my heart. There's a lot of questions to be asked about the ethics of the film. Personally, the only thing I really have a problem with was the Asian stereotype. I felt that was
so whack, Paul.
Unnecessary. Maybe the worst moment in his filmography, just because it's just not, I don't know what the right answer is when addressing issues of racism. I'm not here to litigate that, but
that wasn't funny.
It wasn't funny, and it wasn't insightful, and it was just kind of like a caricature of the Asian people, which is just, of course, that's not cool. It's not groovy. It's not groovy like Inherent Vice.
Right.
And then many people have take huge issue, and I said this in the beginning of the podcast. Many have a huge issue with the underage relationship between Alana Haim's character and Cooper Hoffman's character. Cooper Hoffman being the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman. His character is, he says he's 15 at one point, he says he's 16 at another point. It's kind of vague as to how old he is. Alana Haim's character, I think, says she's as young as 26 at one point, maybe as old as 29 in another. In any case, she's much older than him. Over a decade older in real life. They don't have a sexually explicit relationship. I think the only thing that really happens in the film is that they kiss at the end. But it does raise questions about what life was like in the 70s. Was this a reality that happened? Is that okay? Should there have been more critique of it? Maybe. But ultimately, it's a very fun movie about young people. Alana Haim's character is very young in spirit, navigating the world together and falling in love. And it's a great hangout movie. The cinematography is beautiful. You travel back to the 70s. You have Bradley Cooper showing up in a very fun cameo that should have won Best Supporting Actor for my money in that terrible Oscars year of last. And it is, I don't know. It's very special to me. I really just, it's my favorite film of that year, you know, and I only have so many years on this world, and, you know, I don't think it's some sort of, I don't think it's some sort of masterpiece.
Jeez.
I don't think it's some sort of masterpiece.
Yeah.
It's and at the end of the day, it's a screwball comedy as described by Paul. And Paul also said, in discussing the underage relationship, or when asked about it, he said that this film doesn't have a hateful or spiteful bone in his body. He's just kind of telling the story of this little kid called Gary Valentine, who is based on Gary Getman or something like that, some producer who worked with Tom Hanks. And I'm sure there's, you know, bits and pieces of PTA's young adult life or young teenage, just teenage life in there, and it's fun. I like it. How do you feel about Licorice Pizza?
I do think it's like kind of fun. I'm not really like too big on the couple. I think I mean, if it's a truth, it's a truth, right? Like you said, but it could also seem like a little just kind of unnecessary because other than just sort of this gap in age, I don't really find like their love or whatever kind of interest in them all too interesting. Ultimately, especially compared to movies like Phantom Thread and just all of his prior work. It is fun though. It's funny. They get in some pretty like interesting predicaments, and I do love ultimately seeing L.A. back in sort of that style, like on screen.
It's maybe his least ambitious film.
Yeah, it's not really too ambitious, but you know it's for what it's worth. It's pretty cool though. I just don't think. I mean, especially for what we're about to do, I just don't think it's all that big, which is the order in which we're ranking these movies. Dang, we're hitting on an hour.
Yeah,
Dude, we're hitting on an hour.
I figured
bro.
we do it. It would be this. I know I had a lot to say. I think I articulated myself in a way.
Right.
Yeah.
We talked about what they were, but a lot of like the opinion kind of just went in there too.
Yeah.
But we rank these completely differently. Like
Not completely differently.
it's not complicated. Yeah, it's not completely differently, but we have different opinions about what like which movies are just better or more important in his filmography.
So I would say I'm gonna change my list just a little bit.
You're gonna change your list. What are we? Should we
say-
start from the bottom?
We start from the bottom. I think his weakest film is Part 8.
I agree.
I think
His first movie.
It's first movie. It's not a Reservoir Dogs. It's not a Whiplash. He doesn't jump onto the scene knowing exactly how to do it, or at least he doesn't jump onto the scene with a story that excites the masses. And it's a nice little crime film. It's just kind of like it's kind of one of the only times he did a genre piece. It's very much just a crime story about gambling and murder. It's a product of its time. It's very much a '90s film. Feels very much inspired by the works of Quentin Tarantino, kind of in an indirect way, which I mentioned before. And yeah, it's a cool film. I mean, it's hey, it's better than a lot of other films. It's definitely not the worst film you could watch. If you're gonna, let's say it's a Friday night and nothing's really going on, maybe you're feeling a little tired, you just want to stay in. You turn on Heart 8. It's a solid hour and 40 minutes. You're not gonna regret watching it. you feel like you're in good hands throughout the whole piece. And if you're gonna start Paul Thomas Anderson's filmography, maybe I wouldn't suggest starting with Hard Eight. That might not interest you enough. But it does feel like it's a singular piece in his filmography. A for effort.
Right. I mean, it's a little fun piece. I do agree it is product of its time though, and it's on top of it just being his first movie, and he doesn't have like the money nor the experience to really go with it. To like knock it out the park first shot.
Yeah.
It's a cool movie. I think it's like we agree there. It's where it should be at the bottom of the list, not for bad reason.
Yeah.
Now the next movie, what's his second to worst last movie?
So you agree with Hard Eight is the weakest?
I do agree. We do agree there.
I would say Phantom Thread, and I'm being more subjective here than objective. I think Phantom Thread's probably a lot more focused than a Magnolia, and maybe a little more ambitious than a Punch Drunk Love. But I don't know. Phantom Thread feels like also a bit of an outlier than Paul Thomas Anderson. A lot of people describe him as like the great American filmmaker, and it's set in Britain, and it's in the same vein of There Will Be Blood or The Master, and it's very serious tones and these deep relationships, submission, dominance, what have you. But it's not as, for lack of a better word, it's just not as fun as a lot of his other films. Very serious. Very serious.
Yeah. It is a serious movie. It is kind of a downer.
Yeah, it is ambitious, but the better word is probably it's very, what's the word for you think of, I'm thinking, you think of you're better than me? Like, it's kind of,
it's like snobby or...
Snobby, maybe. I'm trying to think of this word. I can't let this go. It's, snobby. Let's just go with snobby. Great film though. I mean, we just discussed it.
I disagree though. This is where this is already no. I disagree with this placement. I think this is the first point in contention. I don't think this is his second to worst movie.
What do you think is second to worst movie?
I think it's Licorice Pizza. I think it's his last movie. So I think it goes his first movie and then his latest movie, because Licorice Pizza just wasn't all that for me. I mean, compared to Daniel Day-Lewis even, who gives a great performance of this guy, who was just very particular with his work, and is obsessive about small details and peculiar. Why can't I say that word? But yeah, Strange Women. It still stands though that Phantom Thread is probably the third to worst. I would kind of have that.
You didn't even mention the guy's name, Reynolds Woodcock.
What a name! He's just kind of messing with us at this point.
Yeah, he's very potty humor is a big part of his filmography.
Yeah. He just doesn't.
But,
he doesn't care.
He's a singular artist. He doesn't answer to anybody, and maybe not every film is for you, but you can't deny the craft.
So what is it? Licorice Pizza after Phantom Thread for you?
After Phantom Thread, it would probably be Magnolia for me.
That's crazy, because I'm not even close to mentioning Magnolia yet.
Magnolia is a great film, really ambitious, but I don't find it to have like a particularly interesting take or a particularly interesting like there's a lot of sadness and trauma in the film, but I don't find it has like a message that kind of like connects it all. It's just kind of like this piece with this, an ensemble of characters, and there's just a lot less to kind of chew on than maybe not Licorice Pizza. I mean, Licorice Pizza, but that was never the goal with Licorice Pizza. I think these other films, The Master and There Will Be Blood, are kind of the films where, like Magnolia, it's kind of very heavy, and but I think that there's a lot more things to kind of chew on with The Master and There Will Be Blood. Magnolia just feels a bit like it's got all these stylistic things. You got Tom Cruise, being Andrew Tate kind of thing, but it's like not. I don't know. It's not particularly insightful for my money. But the craft is there. A lot of great performances, and I wouldn't knock anybody who says it's up there in filmography. I think Licorice Pizza is just a lot less ambitious and just kind of more focused, and that's my take on
I'm not gonna say anything about Magnolia yet, but that's not. But
that. We did 9, 8,
8,
and 7,
7.
so number 6.
So number 6, but the fourth. Yeah.
Fourth film we're talking about.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are following. To Jake Lacey, who's probably
yeah.
conversation.
Just whoever, the very handful of people.
I would have probably after Magnolia. I'd probably have Punch Drunk Love. It's a great film, It's just.
There, I agree with you. Yeah, number 6.
Yeah,
that's a good number 6.
I forgot to mention before, the whole Punch Drunk Love was inspired by his relationship with Fiona Apple. She was going to Hawaii, and then he followed her there, and it's very much a product of that young, manic Paul Thomas Anderson that flew onto the scene with Boogie Nights. It's a little more focused than that, maybe, but it's a product of those early years and his early obsessions, including really enjoying Adam Sandler's work and whatnot. And it's a short and sweet, intentionally so, after such an expansive piece with Magnolia. Got Adam Sandler to be recognized as a serious actor. Luis Guzman's great in it. There's really great moments that are very dynamic in the way the camera's moving. I think the camera bumps into something at one point and he keeps it in there. A lot of anxiety-inducing. It's almost like the linkage to Uncut Gems, which is the other film people talk about when they talk about Adam Sandler's serious roles, is kind of like the things continuously going bad and the camera keep moving and stuff like that. I really appreciate those sequences. Barry Egan's a great character. He's a Halloween costume, and when you can accomplish that, what else?
Right,
You really,
that is true.
What else you really need?
That is a good way to put it. Yeah, it's good. It's a little bit iconic too.
Yeah,
definitely
iconic. Moving right along.
Yeah, just moving it.
Entering into my top 5.
The number 5.
My number 5 is Licorice Pizza.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wild take.
I really like Licorice Pizza. Maybe I'm biased because it's the first Paul Thomas Anderson film I saw in theaters, but it was a happy 2 hours for me maybe in a low period of my life, and I don't know. It'll always have a place in my heart. That's all I'll say. I don't relate to the characters or anything like that. It's just like the craft and just the idea of the story. If not the
you can enjoy it, but I'm not on you enjoying it.
Yeah.
I'm just on the movie.
So you have Hard 8, then Hard 8, then Licorice Pizza.
Then Phantom Thread. Then
Punch Drunk Love.
So
then entering your top 5, which is Magnolia. Right? Magnolia's your 5? Or is it... Let's get into this.
I think There Will Be Blood is number 5 on his list. There Will Be Blood's
Such
not that...
Take.
It's not...
Scorching hot take from the burning embers of hell. I love it. It's interesting to talk about.
This is my hot take. I don't think There Will Be Blood...
My take...
There Will Be Blood is a pretty good movie. It's not it's just pretty good.
My hot take on There Will Be Blood is that I like Inherent Vice more. That's like, you won't even think that's a hot take, but a lot of people would say so. It's, dude, it's like age-old story. You could compare it to Michael Corleone. You could throw Tony Soprano in there. Just like, this male figure who, is just not a great father figure, and he's greedy and capitalism, I just think it's been done better by other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. I don't think it's just it has been done better by other people. I don't think they'll find it to be some kind of outlier in that sense. I think Magnolia is better because of it. I think Magnolia that's my number 4, and that's because it's just more. I'll give it that it's more ambitious, and that makes it more unfocused, but I think it's just more entertaining, like, front to back, just because of what it's trying to do and, like, say, and how it ties in with the frogs. Dude, the frogs!
Yeah. I don't have a real opinion on the frogs. frogs. It's just part of the movies.
It's just the movie. It's just what it is.
It's only venture into fantasy.
I feel like, for me, that was like one of the only. I mean, not specifically frogs, but just having just this crazy event happen was like really one of the only ways like you could tie in what was going on, because it's like an experience that everybody would go through, well, not only within the scene, but just like it's a big that's what makes it a big day in everybody's life. It rained frogs that day, and it's just like everyone was just a little bit like they chilled out because they realized like what life's really about.
PTA says it's too long at this point.
When it rains frogs, you just kind of remember what life's really about.
Yeah, that's the vibe of the film.
It's kind of scored a little unnecessarily, like dramatic. But whatever.
It's a melodrama. That's what
it is. But whatever.
It's like very high.
I'll give it
drama.
to it.
It's like, I don't want to say it's soap opera, but it's just like the characters are given such tragic stories. Like it's just like there's not a glimmer. It's not a happy character in the film. Like almost everybody. The only like little bit of like, I don't want to say comedic relief, but something you kind of just laugh at is Tom Cruise character in the beginning when he's.
But what about but John C. Reilly though as the cop? It's a pretty.
I mean, sure.
It's not that dark. It's not that
dark, but it's like when you consider it, like you consider his relationship with Laura Walters' character Claudia. It's like
It is forbidden love, and it is a little bit like he's supposed
plus
to.
John C. Reilly like breaks
know
into
better.
that woman's house and finds a dead body.
Yeah, that was a little like that first break-in was like what? Like, I get it's to set up this idea that he like breaks in to people's houses normally for his job, but it's just like what a weird scenario to like put him in. Scenario.
What an interesting scenario.
What's the number 4 for you?
My number 4 would be Licorice Pizza. No, that was my 5, right? My number 4 would be There Will Be Blood, which we just discussed.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not sure we can talk about it anymore. I like the ending a lot. It reminds me of Kubrick. It's one of the greatest endings in cinema history, I think. I think when the characters are talking, like when they're just in rooms, that's like so fun and so funny and just like really cool. The first 15 minutes having no dialogue is a great decision, but like throughout a lot of the film, there's just kind of a lot of like just epic shots and there's some great set pieces in there and stuff like that. It's just not as like I'm a big dialogue guy and just character and relationships and so much of the movie is just about like Daniel Day-Lewis and Daniel Day-Lewis. It's very much just about him. And it's like I think Paul's at his best when he's kind of telling an ensemble story. I think that's something that's reflected in our top 3, which we have the same top 3.
We do have the same top 3 though, yeah.
So, and in a different order. We both have Inherent Vices 3. I love to revisit the film. It's just a great vibe. It's so awesome. It's kind of like PTA. I don't want to say he's doing like he's not a director for hire. He chose to adapt the film. But he gets to work with such interesting actors because he's not doing like a very specific story where he's writing for people. Like he definitely wrote Lancaster Dodd, The Master, 4 films with Hoffman and whatnot. But you just have like Benicio del Toro as like some just kind of like associate of like Josh Brolin's character. Reese Witherspoon is just this woman Joaquin Phoenix knows, which is such a great moment because obviously they did Walk the Line together. Michael K. Williams is in it for a scene, God rest his soul. And there's just a lot. I mean, Owen Wilson's in it, you know what I mean? Owen Wilson in a Paul Thomas Anderson film, that's just amazing. The usual Anderson he works with is Wes. So for him to come to to work with Paul Thomas, it's great. I'm glad he did it. And
wait, what did Owen Wilson play in
Owen Wilson played the guy who was in hiding from the Golden Fang.
Oh shoot, yeah. Wow, I forgot that he was. Wow.
You get an early Hung Chow performance. She's getting a lot of recognition these days. Wow. I was just gonna make like a convoluted joke to get to the Wes End to get to the Royal Tenenbaums, but maybe he didn't. I love.
Wow, that is such a deep
no. You'd have to really know.
Who's gonna decipher that?
Yeah. This book proposes. Maybe he did.
But we do agree on number 3. I think Inherent Vice is just too groovy and too undeniably like cool.
It's so
and like such
cool.
a vibe.
It's so fucking cool.
Like out of this top 3, it's probably the most like shareable.
Yeah, but no, also because like I agree. Like I understand what you mean because it's not as like the Master. Like you can't just show that to a friend. Like yo, let's watch a movie.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Master. Like
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
But Inherent Vice is really convoluted, extremely confusing.
It is kind of.
And someone who doesn't appreciate cinema and especially the actors who end up working in the film. Like for me, the first Paul Thomas Anderson film I watched. Well, the first Paul Thomas Anderson film I watched was Punch Drunk Love, which I liked, but I didn't think it was like this overwhelmingly amazing thing. I like it a lot more now. But I saw Inherent Vice second, and I really didn't get it. Like I understood the grooviness, and it's like the Big Lebowski in the sense that it doesn't make sense and whatever, but it just didn't strike me. I think I actually said in my review on Letterboxd the very first time I watched it, I was like, yeah, I don't know, this film didn't really do it for me. Like, and I'd heard people talk about Paul Thomas Anderson a bunch, so I was in the know enough to refer to him as PTA. But I said, yeah, this film didn't do it for me. Maybe next time, PTA. And then I watched Boogie Nights, and my world completely changed because that was like watching Breaking Bad or Pulp Fiction for the first time. It's this timeless thing that I'll always love to watch. And, it's not a film I'd watch with my children, but, when I feel children are old enough, I'd encourage them to go into their rooms or whatever and watch the movie. Because it's a great movie, but, it's obviously extremely grotesque. And I think that's why we're saying that Inherent Vice is maybe the most shareable film. And maybe it's more shareable. Maybe this is just a coastal thing. Like, I think maybe coming from California and the people maybe it would make more sense to them than people I know, which is kind of this Jersey, New York, very...
Yeah.
I don't know. When I think about cinema and I think about, like, LA and New York being in films, there's obviously great psychedelic New York stories, After Hours maybe being one of them, but I find New York to be a very sober place. Like, it's always kind of like a sober environment with this, like, really nifty and just kind of, like, this person grinding, and you know what I mean? It's just, like, being ever present, painfully present. And so many of the LA films, like Pulp Fiction, Big Lebowski, I could go on, a lot of them just kind of feel a lot more groovy and just kind of like on a higher plane, elevated to some extent. I believe that Samuel Jackson and John Travolta's characters in Pulp Fiction are sober probably in like that first opening scene at the, with Ezekiel 25:17. But it just feels high. Like the whole fucking film just feels high as hell, and Inherent Vice does too. I'm sorry for going on a tangent.
No, you're good.
And I think that's just not where I come from. Like, I mean, people smoke weed where I'm from, but it's just not like, I think it's just not it's more of a cultural thing than it is anything to do with drugs, really.
Well, I get the whole laxness, because, like, LA is definitely more lax, so I can see why it comes off kind of more sort of at peace, higher plane type stuff. But, like, at the same time, like, it's just more like, New York it's just all about focus and, like, really intense, like, intensity. There is, like, that sort of space for calmness and the chaos sort of thing with New York, too. Like, yeah, I definitely do feel very, I guess, intoxicated in the New York lifestyle sometimes.
Yeah.
I will say that. But, yeah, no, my number two, is probably The Master, though.
Yeah.
And you've said that, well, like, yeah, you've said that that's your favorite movie, so it's number one, like, for you. But I guess this is sort of the big climax for this episode, which is that, would you make an argument for The Master being, like, his actual best film versus, like, I think that Boogie Nights is just gold. Like, it's just gold. It's just, like, literal gold.
I think Boogie Nights is the movie he'll be remembered for. If not, There'll Be Blood. I think Boogie Nights is.
It should be for Boogie Nights.
It's extremely fun and it's focused and it's just great screenwriting. Maybe my favorite use of the moving camera in any film. I don't want to say it's better than kind of the still shots you get in a Kubrick film, but the camera's panning and pushing and all these things. In such a lively manner. I mean, it's just shot beautifully. But The Master is eternal, and it is about life and death and love and relationships and sexuality, and it is just so psychological, and it feels just classic. It feels like he adapted a book, It's so much like, it's a deep novel, and you can uncover something new every time you watch it. And that's not to say that Boogie Nights is unlike that, I guess, in the sense of, like, depth to it, because Boogie Nights is a very deep story too. But Boogie Nights, you can watch it one time and really understand what happened. Whereas The Master, like I probably learned more. I probably knew more about the story after my third watch than the first watch, which I guess maybe is for some people that's how they view films. That's usually the case for them. But for me, like Boogie Nights, I understood the first time I watched it, and I fucking loved it. But The Master, the first time I watched it, I wasn't sure how to react and how to feel. And once I kind of just kept watching it because I was always drawn to it, I just have learned so much about myself and the form. And it also feels like his most personal story. It's a love letter. It's just my favorite film. I don't know how to describe it. I really don't feel words can do justice. But it's Philip Seymour Hoffman's best performance. It's Joaquin Phoenix's best performance. Those are two of the greatest actors of all time. Boogie Nights is all about PTA, and all of his films are very much about him and his style and his taste. But I think The Master kind of invites more from his collaborators. Like Boogie Nights is like the star of the show is PTA because you're just there in his world. And there's great performances. I mean, Burt Reynolds, Julianne Moore, Mark Wahlberg. I could go on, but they feel just kind of like compared to The Master, they kind of feel like caricatures or just kind of like things that are being watched. As opposed to The Master, you are so intensely involved in the life of these characters, and because they truly feel this way. Like it's kind of a satire. Like his movies are funny. His movies are very funny, but they're so serious at the same time. And I think Boogie Nights is just kind of like perfect. Like it's just perfect. It's a great film. It's just not like it's just not The Master. But like my rankings of these two movies, my rankings of the PTA filmography begin the same way my rankings of all films ever. It's The Master then Boogie Nights. Like those are my two favorite films of all time. Favorite two films from his filmography, and I've learned so much about life just through him and his work, and I love him so much. I think he's just honestly like just such an artist and like so in control of what he wants to say, and he doesn't feel pretentious. That was the word. That was the word I was going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike Quentin Tarantino, he doesn't do genre pieces very often. He tells stories about weird, obscure things and makes it broadly appeal to everybody. Like, it's not him. He doesn't do his western, then his war movie, then his kung fu movie. He does a movie about the porn industry, then a movie about cancer, and then a movie about oil mongers and all these things, and it's just that's kind of my favorite film when a director can kind of take you into a world and teach you some things you may not have known. I think you learn a lot more than that from genre films, and it's not to say I don't like genre films. I love genre films. It's just the amount of research that probably goes into his films and which stories he chooses to tell are just so much more interesting. Like apparently his next film might be about the Republican Party. And then I heard something else that it might be a 1940s jazz piece that he wrote with his daughter, And I'm willing to go with him on any of his weird, whatever his obsessions are. They become my obsessions once I finish watching his films, and I'm so happy that it seems as if he's going to continue to work for as long as he's able to. We're going to lose Quentin Tarantino after his last film, and that's a sadness. I mean, I wouldn't be a screenwriter, I wouldn't be a filmmaker without Quentin Tarantino. Pulp Fiction changed my life, etc., etc. Film bro this, film bro that. But I know that Paul Thomas Anderson will remain my favorite filmmaker of all time, unless something drastic happens. And I'm all for it. If I can find somebody whose films I enjoy more than Paul Thomas Anderson, then sign me up. I'd go watch those movies right now. But I just don't think that's going to happen for me.
Yeah, so we got to talk about someone that's a little personal. I know I kind of hit him with the left turn talking about PTA this week, but I'd much rather talk about something that's kind of strikes a chord. I like your kind of take on The Master maybe being over Boogie Nights. I think it is a little bit more masterful in that sense of addressing like deeper things, and it's not just I mean it's more than just sort of like art, like a period in the life of someone. Like it is just like this. I don't even know how to put it, man. Like this, it's a story about like when we meet, like when we meet people and we just sort of get this like ethereal kind of presence from them, like as if we'd known them for a while, for like longer than we have. That's the thing that sort of struck me the most about The Master, is that like on some level, I've very much like related to and agree and like believed that like not only Lancaster and Freddie's characters knew each other from past lives, but the acting was so good from Joaquin and Seymour Hoffman that like I just believe that they had like some sort of like crazy connection spiritually to where they could like act this way and then also like just channels like that story. That's just it was just so believable. So I will give it that. And I think I mean of course like Paul probably writes, great scripts for them to sort of build off of, but I will give it that like I think Joaquin and Seymour Hoffman together have a better performance than I guess like Mark Wahlberg and sort of like these other characters that they might be caricatures of real people, you know what I mean? Like people like Don Cheadle's character. I mean there's guys like that out there for sure, but I mean it's definitely more like we laugh at them than like sort of with them. I guess and that's in this scenario in those scenarios in that movie.
Can I kind of discuss our experience of watching the movie together for the first time?
Yeah, you could go ahead on.
So The Master was my favorite film before me and Wes decided to live together. Me and Wes had started watching films together freshman year of college. We watched a lot of films: Mulholland Drive, Blue Velvet. We moved in and out of different filmmakers' filmographies and whatnot. But once we moved in together, I at some point decided, hey, I want to show you The Master. And we watched this movie about these two men who just click instantly, and they love each other, and it's so deep and raw. But they're not sexually interested in one another, or maybe they are. They're not, but like there's a lot of homoerotic tension between the two characters in the film, But it's kind of about male relationships and how like you may be able to kind of like psychologically love somebody, in a non-sexual way, but you love them so much and so passionately that like it's just difficult to articulate or know what to do about that love you have for them. Right. And we really had a discussion about understanding and how necessary that is. We talked about Kanye West and how he kind of relates to Lancaster Dodd. And it was just a very intimate moment of us watching the movie together, and we were on our fire escape just twiddling our thumbs, and we kind of both like I went to go get food, Wes went to his room, and we both decided to just kind of leave because like we had gotten so like deep and personal. Not to say that we were like the characters in the film, we don't have a relationship like that, but it was just a great moment in our apartment and a great moment in mine and Wes's friendship.
No, if we are the two, I'm definitely Lancaster though.
Absolutely, yeah. You're Lancaster Dodd, and I'm Freddie Quell, and I'm happy to be Freddie Quell. And it's funny. Yeah, do you have...
Your fear of imprisonment and confinement is an implant from millions of years ago. No, I don't have anything else to say. I mean, so you gave me enough to think about, but I think Boogie Nights is just, I mean, what a moment, like I said, a moment in time for probably everybody involved, and just fun, like just
really
what a ride. Like that's the thing is like I'm gonna get called out because I don't love roller coasters like that. But if these movies were roller coasters though, like that ride would be the one I'd love to take again, like more often than the others. It's just a great movie. It's just ultimate. It's just it's minted. It's minted. It's like literally, see, it doesn't feel long. It's long, but it doesn't feel long.
Yeah, he's a great filmmaker. He makes really good movies. that's our take. He makes good movies.
That's what the takeaway from this.
I have a question.
What?
So where does PTA rank in terms of your hierarchy of directors?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely love him way more than I do. So, but not. I mean, I'm not dissing. Like, it's just like you have a definitely different relationship with those movies. are his movies. I mean, for me personally, I like people like Kubrick more. I mean, that's one just because I need to mention. But just more so like for I just love movies for different reasons, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
You'd mentioned Kubrick,
Kubrick's
Fincher, Wong Kar-wai,
Fincher.
Ridley Scott.
Yes. Those are some.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are some of my favorite directors.
Yeah.
I think that when it comes to objectiveness, I can't really be objective
And
because
Martin
it's like
Scorsese.
yeah, Scorsese's in there for sure, but Wong Kar Wai for sure. Yo, like I love his movies so much. Yeah, no, I think but he's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, if I had to name like, I mean, I could name 10, right, like directors, but I mean, ultimately, I can't name that many that I've really watched. And now that I've watched all of his movies, I definitely can't name like that many directors where I can say I've watched all their movies.
Yeah.
So,
That's definitely because of me.
well, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That you play a part in it, but I mean, I also I'm
Sure you
glad.
would've
I mean, I watched
watched
his
his work.
latest. I watched his latest movie, like Without You.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and
I would
stuff
say the
like
fact
that.
you would have seen every single
Every
of his
single
films
one is, yeah,
is probably because I wanted that to
Yeah,
happen.
right. But I'm glad that was able to be accomplished. But yeah, no, I watch movies for like different reasons. Like he doesn't have like a big like a nice like sci-fi thing or
Yeah.
anything like that, or something that like just in a different genre that I like appreciate.
20 years from now.
I mean, Blade Runner is my favorite movie of all
would you
time.
score Blade Runner 2076 if they offered it to
Would
you?
I score Blade Runner
15 years from now?
15 years from now, if would I score Blade Runner 76? Why is that so specific?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You score it. Yeah.
Why would I say no?
Well, I thought you said that you wouldn't want to do like franchise work, or like you wouldn't want to work with directors like who you idolized, you know?
Well, I don't think Ridley Scott's gonna be alive.
Yeah, probably not.
Or Dennis.
Well,
for that
that he
matter.
might be. Well, probably not. 50 years. Yeah, no. You probably won't even be alive.
That's what I'm saying. We all might be dead.
Well, by 2076, well, the film would come out in 20 years, and then it would be able to, yeah.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
I'd rather just watch the next one.
Yeah.
I love. I mean, that's my favorite movie of all time. I don't know if the jury's, if people know that. People know that personally about me, but I feel like I've never really said that. Like, on record, I don't know what that says about me either. That my favorite. I mean, your favorite movie is A Master, and my favorite movie is Blade Runner.
That makes sense.
It probably makes sense personality wise to people, but it's very interesting. Like, weird.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, we both like the other movies too. So like.
Well, thank you for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, bro. It's time to go to bed.
It's pretty late.
Yo, it's so fucking late, bro. We really started this conversation. I didn't expect it to be this long. Go ahead, actually.
Yeah, me and Wes have been working real hard on this new film called Red Star.
You could go ahead and plug.
We're tired because we've been working tirelessly to offer a film to the Fordham community and beyond, which showcases the
It's
talent.
not for Fordham. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, most people see it.
This is a Fordham piece.
Not inspired by Fordham thematically or anything.
No.
That, you know,
This is nothing to do with Fordham.
It's very little to do with Fordham.
We just go to Fordham.
We go to Fordham, and the people who worked on the film mostly went to Fordham. So, if you are listening to this and you do go to Fordham, or if you're in the proximity of the New York City area, I'll announce this now because no one will listen to this.
Okay.
The first week of May, my film Red Star is going to screen in the Visual Arts Center near McMahon Hall.
I mean, whoever goes to Fordham right now is listening. Like, they could be interested in coming. Yeah. It's gonna be a great time. I mean, ultimately we're gonna be just screening something we're proud of.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
If you like this conversation, hopefully you like the film. I think it'll work. I love the movie. I'm the director. But I'm very curious to see I'm more interested in what other people have to say about it. So, me and Wes are going to work very hard between now and that first week of May to fine-tune the piece, and hopefully we're creating something that people can derive some sort of meaning out of, because I'm not sure if I even know what it's about.
Dude, and I'm back here every Wednesday still, on top of that. So, I mean, I guess I'm literally just gonna be working, cat's out of the bag. I'm gonna be working on that while doing this too, so it's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah, a lot of exciting stuff.
Yeah,
coming from the West camp. 'Cause I shot the film, I edited it.
Yeah.
I'm supervising of the musical talent of my best friend in the city, or my girlfriend. But you know,
Right.
yeah. So
Thank you, bro. Yeah, no, it is a lot coming from my camp,
yeah,
from from my campaign. Yeah, me and my officers are just hard at work, like just going off. I'm going off right now.
yeah. I go hard in the
I'm
mother
fucking pain. I'm I'm going so hard, dude. I'm going so you can hear it in my voice. I'm just going so hard, and I'm definitely not tired at 2 a.m. right now.
Is it 2 a.m.? Oh my god.
It's almost 2 a.m., bro.
We're rambling.
We're rambling. An hour 40. I can cut this to a good amount. I feel like I mean,
Just leave it uncut.
it could just be raw, but on some level, I do have to like probably censor and like cut out.
Thanks for having me.
Alright, bro. Wait. We gotta get a clean dap. Okay.
Take that.
That was a pretty solid dab. Good night, bro. Good night.
Baba booey.